Well, it's Saturday night, but instead of being at the cinema, we've got some Premiership action for you. Not normally an optimal time for Saturday football, but as the schedule dictates, here we are, and we couldn't find a pick of a better game. Arsenal need to recover from that European humiliation. No better time to do it, no better game to do it than tonight against Newcastle. The Disgracia derby. Right here on the Coach's Corner, and as always, you are welcome. Yes, people, welcome once again to the corner, and we are getting straight into the match, but I will give you the team news very briefly. The title says it all: Arsenal against Newcastle United from the Emirates Stadium over in London. And I will briefly just share some of the team news. They've just kicked off, in fact, Declan Rice passing it over to David Raya, who sends it long. And already Arsenal trying to attack with Havertz laying it off to Gabriel Martinelli, who ends up winning a corner. And, of course, this is the team news for Arsenal. One change made from the debacle against Porto with Jorginho coming in for Leandro Trossard and Kai Havertz once again starting as a false nine. The wisdom of that I will never know. For the moment, it is a corner to be taken by the former West Ham captain. Right-footed, looking to possibly try and swing it in, maybe. And Loris Karius, who was starting in goal today, well, fortunately, he wasn't really tested for that. But the danger isn't over. Declan Rice wins another corner. And it looks as though Kieran Trippier will have a very busy night trying to deal with the threat down Newcastle's right. Second corner to be taken by Rice. Short one, headed into the penalty area, but somehow cleared away. Over to Bukayo Saka, who sends it long. And as I said, the wisdom of starting Havertz as a false nine is something I will never understand. There is no wisdom in that. The man never had a shot on goal, couldn't hit a barn door with a howitzer. And Jorginho might not have the legs, but he can find a pass. I really don't know if Trossard necessarily did too much wrong in the midfield, but clearly he didn't have his shooting boots on like that night. Gabriel Jesus recovers from injury to take his place on the bench. And speaking of Georgie Porgy, as I lovingly call him, he sends it to Ben White. Saka, Odegaard laying it back to Saka, but Saka has, of course, been, double-teamed quite successfully, and Newcastle will try to break. And not able to see the jersey numbers of the Newcastle team, but Jesus, of course, is back on the bench, and the usual suspects are there. Now, interesting team news for Newcastle. I mentioned Loris Karius. He comes in ahead of Martin Dubravka, who was apparently sick for today, according to Eddie Howe. So the former Liverpool goalkeeper, whose last game for Newcastle was the League Cup final against Manchester United, ends up starting. Trippier, Schär, and Botman are in the centre of the defence, and some excellent work by Kai Havertz, but Kieran Trippier coming back and saying, don't you dare try that again with me, boy. And a nice change from left back is that Dan Burn drops to the bench. Burn has, of course, been found wanting in many ways. Havertz doing really well to pick Fabian Schär's pocket, but Kieran Trippier coming back and saying, you're not going to have that. And Trippier, of course, is the former Spurs right back, so obviously with my telly on mute, I wouldn't be able to hear it, but you can definitely expect a chorus of boos for him from the Arsenal faithful. I'm just glad I didn't have to hear that ridiculous song being sung. The three-man midfield, Sean Longstaff, Bruno Guimaraes, and Lewis Miley, who might perhaps be a wrecking ball of sorts, maybe. And Miguel Almiron, 24-karat magic. Isak, number 14. No, not that number 14, I wish. And Anthony Gordon on the left. So another 4-3-3 formation. And on the bench, interesting names here. Most notably, former Hale-ender Joe Willock, who returns from injury. Will he be given a chance to play? I'm not too sure. Now, we've only had one comment in, but We got AFC always in the building. Kivior to be tested tonight, trying to keep Miguel Almiron quiet. Well, Kivior obviously has been a replacement for Jorginho, and the jury is still out on him in many ways. I was quite impressed when we go impressed with him for Poland in the World Cup, but obviously there have been some people who've said his club form wasn't really the best. Joining Arsenal, of course, from the Italian club Spezia, who were, said to be who were actually, struggling at the time in Serie A. And I certainly wouldn't go so far to say that he's stolen a living. And so far, Arsenal have pretty much tried to, dictate the course of play. But Newcastle, to their credit, have held on so far. So well done to them. But at the moment, though, Arsenal are going to try and attack with Ben White sending it forward. But some good defending there pretty much puts pay to that. And Odegaard claiming that the throw should have been Arsenal's, but instead it goes Newcastle's way. And so Tino Livramento at left back will be expected to play an important role in trying to stop the double threat of Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard, not to mention Ben White overlapping. And I will, of course, start by making a new banner. I do apologise, but Edward Howe at the moment, seeing his team go through a little bit of difficult period, but obviously injuries have not really helped them. And Karius, of course, sending that long. Very few people expected Loris Karius to come back to the Premiership, especially after blotting his copybook in one of Liverpool's biggest ever games. But here he is. Certainly didn't get a chance to step onto the Anfield turf while Dubravka had one of the games of his life. He could be tested here, though, with action in the penalty area. It falls to Ben White, or Benny Blanco, as some of us derisively call him. Martin Odegaard there with a poor pass, really, that was never going to find anyone. And Newcastle once again struggling to clear their lines, but eventually they find some respite. A needless foul there by the captain, and he earns a booking for his troubles. Not really the best of starts. The best way to start. Obviously, Arsenal having a lot of the possession, trying to attack, but so far no real shot on goal. Almiron sending that forward. Odegaard committing to the challenge, and really, you can't complain about that. You really can't. We could possibly be having a guest coming on at halftime to discuss the game in question. And certainly a really good friend of mine, a bit of a surprise. Hopefully we will see him, and we should see a lot more of you in the comments as well. But for the moment, 7 minutes have just ticked, and it is Arsenal 0, Newcastle 0. A throwback to William Saliba, who was also not really at his best against Porto. Jorginho back to David Raya, who was questioned for the goal. There's a part of me that would like to think that when Galeno scored that goal, it was a terrific strike, but certainly Raya had no business being that far off his line. And Martinelli unable to control that ball, preventing that from going out for a throw. And Newcastle can once again breathe, but they still aren't quite able to clear their lines yet. Gordon over there having his pocket picked by Ben White, but it is with Odegaard now to Declan Rice. Saka in the penalty area. And fairly routine save for the former Liverpool goalkeeper. Fair to say that the shot pretty much had the venom taken out of it. I think there was either a deflection or it was hit into the ground. But once again, a possible tight offside decision might have needed to be made there. But in any case, Karius was able to make the save. The shot wasn't really of the best. And it is sent forward straight to Saliba, who passes it back to David Raya. Raya sending it forward. And out for a Newcastle throw. So a big test for Livramento. So far, Saka's been able to find his way in, but a worrying trend, of course, and I think several Arsenal fans and a few mates of mine will agree with me, is that although he would start very well, he'd sooner or later be found out. Botman to Fabian Schär, who will try and send it forward, but not very successfully. And you can see how Arsenal's press has worked really well in the Premiership this season. But against Porto, he came up against a team coached by the ex-Portuguese international Sergio Conceição that was exceptionally compact, utilised the low block perfectly, and a poor give away to Declan Rice sees it fall to Martin Odegaard, who could perhaps shoot. Instead, tries to send it into the penalty area, but the pass was quite frankly wayward. Martinelli was never going to get that. And as I said, Sergio Conceição coached that Porto team very well indeed. His son, Francisco Conceição, was in that team. And, of course, they had the aging, creaking Pepe in the team, 41 years old in a matter of days. Here's number 41, Raya, who tries a shot on goal straight at Karius, who parries it away. And already we see Arsenal making their intentions clear as we come up to 10 minutes on the clock. Clearly wanting to try to make amends for that defeat. And Newcastle somehow now breathing a sigh of relief as we click on to 10 minutes with an offside call. And, of course, the last time these two teams met, that was that rather controversial game at St. James's Park where the ex-gunner Joe Willock, who is on the bench tonight back at the Emirates, was involved in that cross, which was deemed to have somehow just not quite gone out of play. And that was that cross which found its way to Anthony Gordon for what proved to be the winner. Huge complaints about the refereeing that day, and there were some decisions, I will admit, that were absolutely awful. But as my good friend Warren from Warren's Team Talk once said, you've got to play well enough that you don't need to depend on the referee being on your side. One shot on target, didn't deserve anything from that game. Free kick to Arsenal, taken by Ben White, short pass back to Saliba, back to Raya, and he will be under the microscope tonight as Isak was trying to make a bit of a nuisance of himself, and now looks as though Newcastle are trying to beat Arsenal at their own game. If you dawdle with the ball in your defence in your own penalty area, you're going to ask for trouble. But I believe the referee over there, Paul Tierney, of course, with his unmistakable bald head, blowing the whistle for a foul, and Arsenal can not just clear their lines, but they can potentially start an attack. And how Jorginho will be able to cope against Newcastle's three-man midfield will be the big test tonight. But so far, hasn't really put a foot wrong, really. And speaking of Georgie, here's a chance for the pass into the penalty area, cleared away. Back into the penalty area, also hooked away. Some more head tennis going on. And Ben White says enough of that. Jorginho passing it back to Magalhaes. And Odegaard sending it to Saka on the right. Livramento is trying to keep up with him. A pass out to Odegaard, but brilliantly intercepted. And Magalhaes now to Kiwior, the Polish left-back, who will be watched today. Jorginho right now, the Brazilian-Italian, to Norwegian Odegaard, to Englishman Ben White, who isn't obviously in Gareth Southgate's plans at the moment. And hoping to find Martinelli, who meets that with a header, but that was never going to trouble Karius. Simply no power on that. And, of course, in other results today, Manchester United had a shock home defeat with former gunner Alex Iwobi scoring the winner deep into stoppage time, 7 minutes beyond stoppage time. Aston Villa winning against Nottingham Forest by 4-2. 4 outstanding goals in a scintillating attacking display, but a lot of defensive worries. And Pau Torres, of course, was worryingly substituted, which meant the ex-gunner Callum Chambers had to come on. And, of course, that was probably when the Villa defence looked a bit stretched. But Villa proving themselves to be a first 11 team, just like Arsenal. But so far, they are still in contention for the Champions League and do have a decent run of fixtures before they face Manchester City and Arsenal later on. So do not rule them out for a late charge for that Champions League spot. In fact, they are very much in the frame, with United having lost further ground today. Saliba. Georgie. Saliba. Of course, I call him Georgie after Georgie Porgy because of, the North London derby we played at the Emirates, came on as a second half substitute right at the start of the second half and gave the ball away. And so I coined this rhyme: Georgie, Porgy, pudding and pie, made a mistake and made Arsenal fans cry. And because the Spurs came out to play, that's 2 precious points we threw away. But so far he's done the job quite well, linking up well with the defence and possibly allowing Rice to move a little bit forward. I suppose that's probably why Arteta's brought him in today. But Trossard should come on. And I despise the idea of Havertz being given more chances, but, it is what it is. We've got Chelsea fan in the building. Let me say good luck to you for the League Cup final tomorrow. I know we had a talk about on Oris stream where I did predict a Liverpool win 3-2 in extra time. But you know what? It's a cup final. Anything can happen. And if you are able to win a trophy under Pochettino and we win nothing, you'll definitely have a more successful season than us. And another reminder, keep hitting at the like button. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new. And where are my manners? I've forgotten about the ticker. And as the ticker says, like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell button for notifications, and follow this channel and Hanno on these socials. Instagram, Hanno_coach_corner. Twitter, Hanno70830030, and his TikTok ID. TikTok on the clock, but over here the party doesn't stop. Oh. All right, enough's enough of that. Jorginho in the penalty area, Martinelli. And Trippier coming back to help out Fabian Schär, who is a bit like a duck out of water tonight, really, against this Arsenal attack. Ben White, Saliba, Magalhaes, Jorginho, Odegaard, Saka, and Livramento doing well, forcing Saka to backtrack a little bit, coming into the centre. Kivior. Saliba. This time finds Ben White with Saka more in the centre, but Saka is now going to the right. Odegaard in the penalty area. It is Havertz laying it back for Jorginho. A lofted pass into the penalty area, but Livramento is back to clear the danger, and that is very good stuff from the number 21 in, of course, as a replacement for Dan Burn, who is on the bench. I think it's fair to say that Dan would have gotten burnt by Saka, Odegaard, and White tonight. But for the moment, it is a corner. Arsenal's third of the game after 2 in the opening few minutes. And, of course, Magalhaes and Saliba both up there. Both of them, of course, are expected to have a role to play in set pieces. Ticking on to 17 minutes. Bukayo Saka, left-footed, hoping to curl it in. Can he find his man? It's lofted in! Well, I think they're claiming a goal, and, yep, it has been awarded. It has been awarded. And Daz, big up to you indeed. And the ref is none other than Paul Tierney. And he has just ruled that that ball has indeed crossed the line. So, once again, Gabriel Magalhaes from the corner. On 18 minutes. Well, it's a perfectly flighted, well-placed corner. And but wait a minute. I think VAR might check this because I'm not too sure if the ball crossed the line. We're going to see. Headed there, saved by Karius on the line. And I think they're claiming that it crossed the line, but if we take a look at the goal line technology, we might possibly see that it didn't quite cross. We'll have some conclusive proof of that. But excellent positioning from the former Liverpool goalkeeper to make the save. I wonder if when he made that save, it went in. And Sven Botman, of course, and Kieran Trippier, maybe that was the moment when it went, yes, that might have been the moment when it went across the line. So, obviously, so I hope that answers your question, Daz. The ref is Paul Tierney, and the goal has been confirmed. Gabriel Magalhaes on 18 minutes. Yep. Magalhaes on 18 minutes. And best possible start that we could have for the game, although the goal could have come a little bit earlier. But of course, when it comes to set pieces, props to Saka for a fine corner. Flighted beautifully, landed on a sixpence, and there was our number 6 to head it in. In case you don't know, I'm an Arsenal fan, so that explains the hour. And Paul Tierney now awarding a free kick, which is taken quite quickly. Declan Rice has it in the penalty area, lays it off to Martinelli, and some rather desperate defending there, but eventually the ball is in fact cleared. But Arsenal do have a throw, and this is the best possible start they could make. Now, I will be honest in saying that I had predicted a tight 2-1 win on Oris Stream, but hearing the news that Martin Dubravka is not playing today and Loris Karius is, I've gone for a 3-1. Actually, 4-1. I lie. And, yep, a little for some formalities here. And we are back with the action. Action on the left, that is. And not the best of crosses. That should be easily cleared. It's Trippier in the penalty area being harried by Kivior. And Kivior does brilliantly to dispossess him, but Martinelli ends up slipping at the wrong moment. Sean Longstaff can try and hook the ball away. And Isak at the moment was trying to get it away, but he had a lot of people pretty much triple teaming him. And Havertz once again losing the ball. And Guimaraes is not exactly a popular figure among Arsenal fans. It was his goal in the 2022 season which denied us our chance of qualifying for the Champions League. And the goal line technology, in fact, confirming that goal. Livramento in tonight for Dan Burn, making the mistake, inadvertently diverting the ball beyond that goal line. So technically that could perhaps have been a Livramento own goal, but in fact could very well be that Magalhaes might have this goal chalked off him, but he won't care as long as Arsenal are 1-0 up. But the most important thing now is that Arsenal do not sit back, because this Newcastle team can be very combative in the midfield. And if we're not careful, if we allow ourselves to slack off, they could come back at us. At the moment, though, it is in the Newcastle half. Odegaard to Saliba. Ben White to Saka. Havertz laying it off to Jorginho, but Jorginho's pass is intercepted. And an important tackle there from Jorginho. And once again, another back pass to David Raya. Isak as well is probably going to be Newcastle's biggest threat when it comes to scoring goals. Callum Wilson is, of course, out with a pectoral muscle injury. A lot will be expected of Almiron. Certainly a very talented, if rather inconsistent player. I think mercurial is the word to describe someone like him. Odegaard now up against Lewis Miley and takes the ball away from him. Jorginho, the goal scorer, Magalhaes. Saliba. Magalhaes. Jorginho. Magalhaes again. Back to Jorginho. Odegaard to Saka on the right. Back to Odegaard. Jorginho finding that pass. Ben White's in the penalty area, but elected to pass and ended up seeing that pass get intercepted. Martinelli with a shot, blocked by a header high in the air, and Newcastle eventually clear their lines. Saliba now to Jorginho. This is wonderful sustained pressure. Beautiful pass from Jorginho. Does Martinelli break the offside trap? Yes, he does, and it is eventually Havertz on 24 minutes who puts Newcastle 2-0 behind, Arsenal 2-0 up. And that is why I'll give Arteta credit. Made the right selection by bringing in Jorginho. May not exactly have the legs these days, but he certainly can find a crisp pass. This is now looking very ominous indeed. Perhaps in hindsight, not the best of clearances from... And Martinelli doing well to break the offside trap. And it falls to Havertz, who rifles it past his fellow German. 2-0 Arsenal. The Gunners are in dreamland, and the Magpies are getting cooked. So the much maligned Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli with assists. Brilliant footwork there from Martinelli to prevent that from crossing the line. That's how you do it, Joe Willock. And Karius with no chance there. And all Eddie Howe can do is put his hands on his hips. A season that started so promisingly, so beautifully for Newcastle, is now in danger of fizzling out before the month of April. Arsenal 2, Newcastle United 0. White, Odegaard, and they're still coming. The Red Army is coming hard and fast. Jorginho. To be fair, of course, to Havertz, that was the easiest of tap-ins. Even Eddie Nketiah would have scored that. Ben White. Saliba. Martinelli back to Saliba. Good to see him doing a few defensive duties. Jorginho. Saliba. White. Saka. Saliba. And Ben White overlapping, but nobody really on the end of that, and that will be passed back to Karius. Trippier now. Karius. I think that's Sven Botman, the number 4 rather. And he's dispossessed by Odegaard. And more desperate defending there from Newcastle, sees a corner conceded. And I think Havertz will probably be asking, how did he not score? The Magpies' defence are at 6s and 7s. A poor pass over there, and Odegaard intercepted that beautifully, but great work. And it really does look as though Fabian Schär is looking really unsettled in that back four. Might be time to bring on Jamal Lascelles, maybe. But Declan Rice once again with a corner, right-footed, hoping to swing it in. High, flighted in, but straight into Karius's arms. Rolls it out to Botman. And finally passing it to Livramento. Botman. Still it's stuck with the ball, but now Newcastle do have it and they are making a run, but Saliba there reading the danger perfectly and stopping Isak from having any ideas of trying to attack the goal. But not necessarily the best kick from Raya, doesn't really find anyone. And after a slight breather, Newcastle can attack again. Botman with the ball to Livramento. Hasn't done too badly at left back, Livramento, but obviously couldn't do much about the corner that led to Gabriel's goal. And then, of course, but Newcastle now in the penalty area. Forced to backtrack a little bit, but nice header in. Should be cleared away, and Saka does, in fact, hook it away. And eventually Declan Rice is able to get that and make a move down the left. But nice interception there from his England teammate Kieran Trippier. Trippier, of course, expected to be one of England's right-backs at Euro 2024. And one wonders if that could be his final major tournament with England, or does he have sights on heading to the 2026 World Cup? would normally be expected to play as a right wing back with Kyle Walker as a centre back in a back five, or he ends up coming on as an impact sub. There have been occasions when he's even played at left back. And if there's one side I absolutely despise, it's that inverted sort of stuff with a right-footed guy playing at left back and vice versa. And Carrier's coming out, intercepting it well and sending that out for a throw. Got a few more comments in here. Yep, what a start. Hanno, obviously not an Arsenal fan, very disappointed with the Magpies. Well, to be fair, the Magpies have had a few injuries, and Tierney spotting that foul from Guimarães on his fellow Portuguese speaker, Jorginho. And certainly his tackle on Havertz was worthy of more punishment in the return fixture earlier on this season. At the moment, though, Arsenal look as though they're going to get revenge, and Newcastle, after getting the double against Aston Villa, might not be getting the double against Arsenal. And they've certainly blown hot and cold in many games, it has to be said, which is why they're as low as they are. A short pass to Bukayo Saka, back to Jorginho, who took that free kick. And Saka trying to thread it through to Odegaard. Odegaard lays it back to Saka, brought out to the wing, and was Martinelli that time who tried to meet it with his head, but sort of ended up sending it over the bar. And to be fair, it was coming in fairly quick. I think it's fair to say that the number 11 overran that, perhaps. Maybe if he had taken a step back or two, would have met that perfectly. But beautiful little back heel there from Odegaard. Probably not as influential as Jorginho has been in this half, really. But, yeah, you can see sort of hitting the top of his head on the left side. Maybe if he had stayed back a bit, he would have been able to meet that at that sweet spot. And some more cordialities, but no change to the scoreline. And Trippier finding Isak. Isak sending it back. It is with Sven Botman. Anthony Gordon, who's tackled from behind. Tierney waves play on. Miley hoping to run onto that, but Saliba says, not tonight, son. And Raya ends up finding Saliba again, despite Miley's best intentions. If there are any Newcastle fans, I'd like to know if it's pronounced Miley or Millie. I'm assuming it's Miley, because Millie might require 2 L's. Rice, Jorginho. And of course, with Manchester City beating Bournemouth 1-0 earlier today in a game where Bournemouth actually had some fine moments and could have scored more than a few goals themselves. The onus is, of course, on Arsenal to win tonight to keep the pressure on both City and Liverpool at the top. And Martinelli hoping to run onto that. Can he keep it in play? Tierney rules that he doesn't quite keep it in play, and so instead of a corner, it will be a goal kick for Newcastle. But Martinelli once again showing wonderful flight of foot. And we're just seeing a shot, of course, of the iconic clock that was at the old Highbury Stadium, now brought to the Emirates. And a corner conceded by Newcastle. Guimarães there inadvertently sending that behind. And that, of course, was on the same side from where Bukayo Saka flighted that corner beautifully to be met by Gabriel Magalhaes for the opening goal. We've got someone here, LFC for life. Oh, Arsenal. Why do you feel like Newcastle are going to make a comeback? Mate, I'm sorry, but at this rate, you're taking the mickey. And we're going to see right now if Arsenal can make the most of this. Jorginho to Odegaard in the penalty area, but the attempted cross from Odegaard is headed away. And looks as though Miguel Almiron is back there doing defensive duties. It's all hands to the pump now for Newcastle, quite literally. Jorginho to Declan Rice. Magalhaes. I think that was Kivior who passes it back to Magalhaes. White. Gabriel to Kivior, who sends it forward, hoping to find Kai Havertz, but this time some good defensive work by Botman puts paid to that, but it is with Gabriel Martinelli now. To Jorginho, sending it into the penalty area, hoping to find his Brazilian counterpart. Sort of headed down. It actually does fall to Martinelli, who ends up taking a wild shot over the bar. I should stand corrected. He was actually hoping to find Kai Havertz there, but it was that Newcastle header which intercepted that. And Martinelli ended up taking that shot, which went right over the bar. It's not rugby, son. It's soccer. So 35 minutes gone, 10 minutes to half-time, plus stoppages. It is Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0. And I'm just going to get some water. Yep, and the reason why I had to stop the cam is because I did not want to run the risk of moving my head and having all of you see the reflection from the television screen, courtesy of my mirror. And some exchanges here between Chelsea fan and LFC for life in lieu of the cup final tomorrow. I do believe Hanno will be doing a watch-along for that, and I'm sure he will obviously want to see Chelsea win. Chelsea fan sadly agrees that Liverpool might come out on top. But LFC for life smartly not saying anything out of fear of potentially jinxing something. No chest for you. And I like that. I appreciate your restraint. And all Eddie Howe can do is look on. But I'll tell you what, credit to Newcastle, but not quite. No, actually credit because they've been dispossessed. Havertz with a chance to try to get it crossed it in. It is with Martinelli now. Lays it back for Havertz in the penalty area. But the German dawdling on the ball and ends up being dispossessed. But Kivior finds Martinelli. Lays it back for Declan Rice. Jorginho. Back to Saliba. Over to Magalhaes. Back to Jorginho. Magalhaes again. Kivior. Kivior finding Martinelli, who lays it off for Rice. He gives it back to Martinelli, hoping to run into the penalty area, which he does. Cross over there, but someone taller than Odegaard might have been able to get onto the end of that. But terrific work by Saka to evade a couple of defenders and then have a shot on goal. Well saved by Karius. And Saka is, of course, left-footed, but definitely does have a more than decent right foot. Great work there, evading two defenders and then having a shot straight at goal. But Karius, well positioned. It is, however, Saka's territory, the corner. So it could be a short one with Odegaard standing close by. Or does he float it in again, hoping for yet another corner goal? It is floated in. And it ends up being headed past the Newcastle defence, but nobody really on the end of that. And once again, the Magpies struggling to clear their lines. Eventually they do. Isak now trying to send it forward, but sort of stopped in his tracks. Livramento. Gordon. I believe that's Guimaraes, who passes it back to Botman. Fabian Schär, who finds Guimaraes with that space in the middle. Saka trying to close him down, but doesn't. And Saka ends up conceding a free kick for a rather needless foul. And coming right into the 40th minute, there will be 5 extra minutes and there will be stoppages, one would imagine. Not too many, and Newcastle once again being pushed back and being forced to defend. Arsenal's high pressing style is really leaving them rather uncomfortable. I think Guimaraes came off second best in one challenge and looks as though he's able to recover. Just tying his laces, and this will certainly add to the minutes being added to stoppages. And after all that kerfluffle, Karius picks it up with his hands and prepares to send it long, or does he send it long? No, he doesn't. Short pass out to Botman. To Trippier, back to Botman, and with Odegaard and Martinelli and company snapping at their heels. Eventually it finds its way to Isak, and he ends up winning a throw. A little respite for Newcastle, but might end up being short-lived the way Arsenal are playing right now. Certainly looking to put that chastening European defeat in Portugal at the Estadio do Dragão well behind them. And of course, I was on a watch-along with my good mate Danny from Danny AFC TV. Shout out to him. He's also doing a watch-along right now for his channel. And you will see me working with him for the return leg at the Emirates Stadium. A worrying stat, of course, is that Arsenal have not won any of their home European ties under Arteta. So this is as good a time as any for that duck to be broken, although I'm not too sure it can be. Saka, Jorginho, Declan Rice. Almiron coming back to help out in defence. Jorginho. Odegaard. Havertz, Odegaard. Saka. Looping it in. Headed down by Rice to Odegaard, and Rice ends up taking a shot on goal, but I believe there was a foul in the penalty area, and so Tierney says free kick to Newcastle. Speaking of another Tierney, I do believe he is still injured, but making as quick a recovery as he can, and he should be expected to play in Sociedad's return Champions League tie against Paris Saint-Germain. And it's fair to say that the Scotsman will have no future at Arsenal after this season, but I think he's focusing more on ending his on having the time of his life in Spain. And a pass there from Miley, which well, obviously Almiron there had a chance to try to cause some trouble, but you could say he got cold feet, because that footwork over there was really tentative. But Lewis Miley there threatening to be the wrecking ball. And a goal before half-time would certainly give Newcastle a bit of confidence, but as it stands, they're still 2-0 down. But Arsenal had been 2-0 up before, coasting, only to be pegged back on more than a few occasions. We remember that all too well, as Saka is flagged offside. As I said about Tierney, he will be expected to have the time of his life in Spain, end the season successfully, and also, if he stays fit, play a key role for Scotland in the upcoming European Championships. Botman. Share, Trippier. And that is sent forward. And Isak does find it, but Raya showing some good anticipation to sort of kung fu kick that into the crowd. Newcastle throw. And so we're into the last minute of normal time in the first half, and there will be a few minutes of stoppage time. I'm anticipating maybe only 2 at maximum. And Livramento now was being harried a little bit by Odegaard and Saka, but was able to avert the danger. Trippier, who's not been able to overlap as much as he would like, but sends a beautiful pass forward, only for Raya to once again anticipate the situation brilliantly and send that out for a throw. But there's some good sustained pressure from Newcastle as we come to the end of normal time. And 10 seconds left, of course, in normal time. Pass across the field to, I believe that's Lewis Miley. Gordon now up against Saka. Gets it to Guimaraes, who sends it into the penalty area, but that is headed away. But Newcastle now have a chance. No, they don't. Cleared away. Not very successfully. It is with Livramento now. And sent back, though, so that takes momentum away. And there will be 3 minutes of time added on. So enough time for Newcastle possibly to get a goal. And Gordon down the left will certainly have some designs on that, only for Saka to stick a leg out and intercept that. It is back with Gordon, though. Only for there to be a back pass to Botman and another back pass to Karius. So altogether disappointing. Fabian Schär. Botman again. Finds Lewis Miley, who passes it to Livramento. And Gordon being harried by Ben White. And White ends up conceding a needless free kick. And of course, within about a minute 45 seconds, I don't really see much chance of Newcastle scoring a goal that would give them some hope. But you never know. You never know what can happen if Arsenal's defence switches off. We could be in for an interesting scoreline. Gordon. Livramento. Botman. Fabian Schär. Back to Botman. Odegaard running in hard, but Botman clearing the danger well enough. And is that Guimaraes, who finds Fabian Schär. Trippier moving forward and flagged offside. Didn't time his run very well there, the England veteran. Into the last 45 seconds of the first half, and has to be said that Arsenal easily the better team, but Newcastle have had their moments. I mean, they haven't really had that much in terms of shots on goal, but they have caused the defence a few problems with some well-timed runs. And you can see the Newcastle fans trying to raise their voices, trying to raise their team up. Not necessarily to much avail. And with 10 seconds to go, it won't be long before Tierney blows his whistle. Paul Tierney, that is. Claim for a foul over there, but I think the referee would have blown the whistle for a handball anyway. And that is half-time right now from the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0. Some sustained pressure paying off in the 18th minute with a well-taken corner. In fact, I can confirm that there has, in fact, been a change of goal scorers. It is, in fact, credited as an own goal from the defender Sven Botman, who inadvertently tucked that ball back beyond Loris Karius. But, of course, doesn't make much of a difference, and it certainly doesn't matter to Gabriel Magalhaes, because Arsenal are in fact 2-0 ahead. I did say that the goal could be changed to reflect an own goal, and it has been confirmed that it was the unfortunate Botman who put it over the line. And worryingly, Botman and Cher have looked quite good for Newcastle when they're at their best, but so far they seem to be, really uncomfortable in the face of Arsenal's pressing. And it could very well be that there'll be some changes coming in at half-time. Certainly Newcastle's midfield has not really looked as strong as it would be. And in as much as I despise the decision to make Havertz a false nine, he has scored, done what he had to do, although it was a tap-in. And Jorginho might not have been at his best against Porto, but he has been quite influential tonight. Now, of course, I do believe we've got some esteemed guests in the studio who will be performing some halftime analysis, and I will, if I don't get any guests coming online to speak, I will, of course, talk through the halftime analysis. At the moment, though, Arsenal looking really good, but I did mention that on several occasions we've gone 2-0 up, only to, just relax and be caught on the break and concede a goal at the most inopportune time. It nearly happened against Brighton, so in as much as we did beat them 2-0, when you've got ex-gunner Danny Welbeck coming on as an impact sub, you can never, ever relax. And we are going to have games like this where we, play as we normally do, score a few goals and end up in a comfortable position at half-time. But it really all, hinges on the second half, how we're able to continue doing it. Obviously, this is nothing like the West Ham game where we literally sliced through the Hammers like hot knife through butter. But at the moment, we are looking really good, and West Ham have not really been able to gain much of a foothold in the game. And lo and behold, I do have a guest, an esteemed guest of mine, a wonderful friend of mine. I believe he's making his debut on the channel. Let me introduce you all to Del Boy. Thanks for joining in, and how are you, mate?
All good, mate. All good. All good. I'm buzzing here, to be honest with you, and it's great to be on the on Coach's Corner channel, making my debut. I'm delighted you invited me along. Thank you.
Yeah, listen, I was never not going to invite you, and I'm really glad you did. Obviously, when we were doing our streams for the Rugby World Cup, I was hoping to have you on. Just as well that I didn't call you when Ireland played New Zealand. I think that was an absolute heartbreaker. Your heart broke for Johnny Sexton. But it was good to do all of that. I wasn't expecting to get coverage of that, but and of course the Six Nations are going on. You lot are looking really imperious, and I do worry about England when we face you lot at Twickenham.
Yeah, look, come here. I'll take this because Ireland as a nation, we don't, in our football soccer team, let's say, because we're talking about rugby, we don't do well. But I'll take the rugby. I'll take that hands down. Rated probably, I think we're number 2, obviously, in the world now, I think. But yeah, gut wrenching, the New Zealand game, heartbroken. I said it earlier on my channel, the Six Nations, I don't mean to disrespect any team in it, but I think we are going to go and get a grand slam on that. We're playing too good. We're such a good team. But the World Cup for Irish people, to be honest with you, it hurts. You know what I mean? That we just, it's like we can't get there. Even the World Cup beforehand, we should have done well. Certainly got into a final, quarter-final, or semi-final at least. But look, hey ho, we'll take it and let's move on.
Yep, and you've already got some people saying hello to you. We've got a Chelsea fan here who's pretty excited, or even if a bit apprehensive about tomorrow's cup final. And we've got Alan Shearer and Sean Wright-Phillips in the studio where I am. So I actually get my feed from the official Premier League channel as opposed to Sky Sports. So I don't get to see Jamie Carragher's mug. I mean, he is a mug, we all know. But So obviously, the big change that was made by Arteta was to bring Jorginho in as a replacement for Trossard. In fact, it was Jorginho who came on for Trossard as the only substitution when we played Porto. And I was thinking, oh God, not this again. But I tell you what, the Brazilian Italian has looked pretty good in terms of being able to find the pass. My biggest worry is, mate, that he wouldn't have the legs to cope with the likes of Guimaraes and Longstaff and Miley in the midfield. But so far, he's more than held their own. And that pressing style of ours, which works well in the Premiership, I think he's slotted in quite perfectly. What do you say?
Yeah, I'll be honest. At the start, I was there. I wasn't going mad, but I was there. No, I think this game is the Trossard game. Instead of Jorginho and probably sort of play it that way. But I have to give credit to Arteta. It's a genius way he's playing this game. Jorginho is just sweeping up everything in that sort of midfield area. It's allowing Declan Rice then to push on. And I think Declan Rice, he's quality at it. He could, you want Declan Rice on the edge of the box. When a ball rolls out to him, you want him to hit it. He's done it a number of times this season, scored an absolute bangers from the edge of the box. He drives on so much, and it's brilliant to watch, to be honest with you. This first half, Arsenal has been absolutely quality. Absolute quality. I have to give it to Arteta, and I don't say it much, but I have to give it to him. To put Jorginho in there and just mop up everything that's coming out against the Newcastle team, who I thought would have been absolutely buzzing to come to the Emirates on a Saturday night under the lights, live on television. Millions and millions of people around the world are watching this game. So they were raring for this. And to make a gamble, not a gamble, I suppose, but to make that choice and push Havertz up to that centre forward. And Havertz, I'll give him his credit. He's playing very well as well in that position, in that role. You know what I mean? So Arteta has got it right so far.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say is it's the next goal is vital. If we get a goal, I think we'll score. It'll be 4-0 easy.
Absolutely.
If they score, the crowd will go quiet. It'll be a bit nervy. The players will get a bit nervy. So that next goal is vital in this game.
Yep. I said it before you came on. Many have been the occasions this season when we get to a 2-0 lead playing our usual attractive high-press football, but then we get complacent. We allow them to hit us on the break, catch us cold. We concede a goal, and, all hell breaks loose. But if Arteta's smart enough, he will have told his players, boys, we still have 45 more minutes, and, you've got to keep your concentration. And, obviously with Liverpool having thrashed Luton, obviously in midweek in preparation for the Cup final, and also Manchester City not exactly impressing at Dean Court earlier on today, it is important, of course, that we, get this win and obviously get some measure of revenge for that. I call that the Disgracia match. I believe AFTV called that the Disgracia derby. And I also thought that it was really a cheap shot of Arteta to say that ever since his complaint against the referees, the standard has improved. And this is one thing which I really don't like about the bloke. I mean, he has the potential to be a really, really good manager, but sometimes when he opens his mouth, a lot of absolute, as you would say, bollocks comes out of it. Yeah. So I guess as long as he can, have some performances like this as a manager, all will be well. But look, we've got some tougher games to come, including playing City at the Etihad. And, as we keep saying, one swallow doesn't make a summer. But do you think that maybe this time around we'll have learnt from last season's bottling and might not be taking things for granted this time around?
That's a great question. At the start of the season, I said to myself, we will have learned from it. But there's patches of some games that we haven't. And the reason why I was saying, right, we're going to learn, because I think Declan Rice is a winner. He will win a league, hopefully at Arsenal. If not, he could go on to like a Real Madrid or Barcelona and go on and win leagues there. That's how good I think he is. And I thought he was a great addition to the squad. There is some games Porto is a complete example of we did not learn our lessons, because you're playing away in Europe. You should know it's a European night. It's 0-0. The game isn't over. It's not lost. You have to be professional. You don't concede in a away European game. And to that 1 minute that we just let our concentration slip, and it cost us. And the TV, like the channel I'm watching on TN Sports, they're saying, "Oh, it's going to be a great night," and for Arsenal, they're at home, and they're sort of making out that it's a given. I don't think so. Like, Arsenal have to score 2 goals against Porto. Porto are just going to park the bus and just defend and defend and defend. And we all know these European teams, when they need to get a result, they can get it. You know what I mean? They will probably throw 5 at the back or something like that. It's going to be so hard to break down. So to get 2 goals, and that's hoping that we don't concede, it's going to be hard. And that sort of goes back to the sort of thing that I'm saying about lessons learned. Like, that was a silly mistake that we didn't get. The Newcastle game, when we played them in St. James's Park, West Ham, when they beat us, they beat us at home, wasn't it? But these are the silly little things we make. And tonight, for example, if we draw this game tonight, that's another example of we did not learn our lessons.
Exactly.
This game tonight, we should just kick on, get our 3rd goal, and we should all be sitting back in our chairs, relax, and enjoy the game, and enjoy the atmosphere and everything else enjoy the football that comes from it. So, look, it's just, I call it brain farts. You know what I mean? We have control, but next thing there's a moment of silliness. Someone does something silly, and it costs us a lot of points. Like West Ham, as it says, at home. Newcastle, I think was it Fulham or some other game. There was 4 games in total. I was on my stream earlier on, and there was 4 games that we lost that we should not have lost. We should have at least drew, and that's 4 points dropped. And that's the sort of thing that I'm talking about. And that's the thing where you win or lose a title.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you on that. Mental flatulence is what I would say, for want of a more genteel word. But listen, I know you're an Irishman. You speak from the heart. And I don't think we're back at the Emirates Stadium just yet. I think they're still showing highlights of the game. But I know you might want to go. So I'll just ask you a few brief questions to get you to shout yourself out before you leave. And, of course, if you do want to come back after the game for a few thoughts, by all means do so. But you mentioned as well that Porto might be parking the bus. Now, you take a look at the first half from a Newcastle perspective. Obviously, they had to make some changes to their team. I mean, Dubravka's illness has meant that Karius ended up starting in goal tonight. And you saw my message when I said that I'm changing my prediction to 4-1. Because I think Karius is that awful a goalkeeper. I mean, credit to him. Obviously, he has looked pretty good in terms of positioning. Made a good save from the corner, only for Botman to completely muck it up. And he hasn't been helped by his defence. And Botman and Cher, who are normally quite solid at the back, have looked like ducks out of water. So it's very easy to say that teams can park the bus. And obviously, Newcastle will. Newcastle fancy themselves as being strong defensively, but we've made them look really, really ordinary. So, and bear in mind, they've got a 41-year-old in defence. So who's to say that if we can't keep pressing and attacking them, we can't get something out of it? I think the problem was, though, that they did their homework on us. So should we at least be a little bit more confident that we can get something briefly?
Yeah, like we should be confident. The way that we played this half was absolutely outstanding. Like, I have to say, like, even groups that I'm in and friends of mine are texting me just going, "Wow, Arsenal are absolutely playing brilliant football." But as Arsenal fans, we have that, if they get that goal, it's, we're under the lights. It's a Saturday night. There's loads of people watching. It's live on telly. That's sort of like, the Arsenal fear, I call it, But, let's be confident. Let's see what happens. Like, you know what I mean? I think the next goal is vital in the game. I think Newcastle defence very bad tonight. I don't think they're at the races. And I'm hoping for an early Arsenal goal in this second half, and they can just sit back then and just relax and watch the game.
Yeah, well, I'm going to let you go because it's 30 seconds into the half, but
Yeah.
I will shout you out. Do please follow my good friend Del Boy Gunner TV on his channel. We usually the call-in shows, but these days he does a lot more independent videos and previews. Social media, how can we get in touch with you, mate?
Yeah, just Del Boy Gunner on Twitter, and the same on Instagram as well.
Right. Okay. So I will let you go so that you can watch the match. But again, when we're done with the game, if you want to come back, we might have some reflections. Just let me know, and I will let you back on. But for now,
Yeah.
we just clocked a minute. Go back to watching the game, and I will see you soon.
Yeah,
Take
and
care. Yeah.
just to say to you, I'll be watching the game. I'll have this on mute, and I'll be listening to yourself.
Oh, mate, you are too kind. Well, as you go off, you can see right now that Arsenal are in the penalty area, and we should have the third goal. But how does Kai Havertz miss that?
Oh,
Seriously.
let's talk soon, mate.
Definitely.
Take care. Thank you.
Cheers. I'll catch you soon.
Take
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Come back. And yeah, as you can see there, the Newcastle defense at 6s and 7s, offside trap broken, beautiful pass through to Havertz. All he has to do is just, side foot it with Karius going the wrong way, and it goes wide. Wide. We needed that third goal. For the moment, it is still Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0. 2 minutes into the second half. Kivior back to Magalhaes. And Declan Rice at the moment trying to go through, but running into Almiron and company like a train, hitting the buffers. Into the penalty area. Isak now. But Raya doing really well to throw him off his guard. Can Isak find a teammate? No, he can't. And the danger is averted for now. And this is what, Del Boy and I were just talking about. We will have these moments of mental flatulence where we let them get in behind us and give themselves a chance. Still no shot on target for Newcastle, but we just cannot relax for 1 minute. Saka to Havertz now. To Martinelli on the left. Back to Georgie Porgy, who's had a much better game tonight, has to be said. Martinelli to Magalhaes. Kivior. 2 Gabriels on the field tonight. The other Gabriel is on the bench, so he could be brought on to replace Havertz if the need arises. Jorginho sending it wide and finds Ben White, but Saliba pretty much intercepted, claiming a handball, but Tierney says no. It is Anthony Gordon who finds his way into the penalty area, but a shot come cross along the ground, easily gathered by David Raya. And Eddie Howe, of course, clapping. And it was very interesting to see AFC Always' comment. Whoops. The same manager people want to manage England. These tactics he's using for Newcastle are woeful. I'm not too sure it's so much the tactics, mate. I think it's a case of Arsenal being a little bit too strong for Newcastle and making their defence look absolutely wobbly. And, we were talking about how Porto would park the bus, but I'll tell you what, Pepe is 41. He will have some weaknesses. We have to press, though, and we have to try and make sure that we get in behind the defence more often. We need to win because a horrible stat is, of course, as I've mentioned, we haven't won any of our home European ties under Mikel Arteta. Losses to Olympiacos, 2-1 and 1-0 in his first 2 seasons. And, of course, the debacle against Sporting Lisbon. Gordon now up against Ben White. Goes in past White into the penalty area, but Georgie is there to defend, and Saka hooks it away with his wrong foot. Of course, it's his right foot, but his right foot is, in fact, his wrong foot. Make sense of that. And, of course, a Newcastle goal, as you've said, AFC Always, will change everything. But for the moment, there is no Newcastle goal forthcoming as we have ticked beyond the 50-minute mark. It is still Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0, but still plenty of time, so we have to make sure that we stay on our guard. Carriers headed back by Magalhaes, but Tierney obviously blowing the whistle for a foul, and it will be a Newcastle free kick. And some more cordialities. Chelsea fans at AFC always. Lovely to see the love over here. And AFC always, I'm going to ask you a question, mate. You mentioned that this was one of the best halves of football this season. So if you had to choose between our first half against West Ham at the London Stadium and the first half here, okay, let's goals aside, which one would you prefer? And I'll get your answer in the chat soon, hopefully. Free kick sent into the area, but nobody really able to get on the end of that. Simply put, a lack of quality for Newcastle in their final third is what has hurt them. Trippier sending it forward, hoping to find Gordon, but Saliba says, no merci. And Odegaard now trying to start something, but at the moment being harried. Back with Declan Rice, Georgie Porgy, and Ben White obviously overlapping, passes it back to Jorginho, to Saka, to Kivior, who finds Martinelli on the left. Into the penalty area, and not the best of crosses, really. Easily intercepted, and a pretty poor tackle on Almiron by Martinelli, and that will be a Newcastle free kick. And Almiron has been kept quiet tonight. Isak as well certainly has been the one trying to make things happen for the Magpies, but to no real avail. And we completely agree all around. Arsenal will need one more goal to kill off the game. And of course, after this, I will probably be jumping on to Northside LDN's call-in show. He will normally have his video ready some time after the game is over, where he'll say what he wants to say. And this is the sort of a performance that will have him feeling quite happy. But of course, we will need to make sure that we make it count by earning the 3 points. But for the moment, though, it is looking good. Coming up roses for the Gunners. Full house tonight. No trip to the cinema for these lot. Declan Rice with the free kick. All the way out to Saka on the right. Up against Livramento. And Livramento's not allowing him to go too far forward, but then Saka does find Jorginho, who finds Magalhaes, who finds Martinelli. And Martinelli sends it to Magalhaes in the centre. Back to Georgie, back to Magalhaes. Georgie again. And this pass hoping to find Kivior, who was running onto that, but Trippier putting pay to his ambitions. And Arteta obviously not getting up to any of his childish antics. Pretty much urging his team on. Chippy with the short throw. And it is Fabian Schär who tries to start something, and he does find Anthony Gordon. Good pass over there from, I believe that was Lewis Miley. It is back with Lewis Miley, who finds Gordon. Livramento was overlapped. Guimaraes sending it into the penalty area, but Ben White cutting that off. And Martinelli trying to go forward, but an excellent tackle there from Botman. But however, well, Havertz was hoping to be sent on his way, but Trippier legally trips him up and says, not tonight, son. And it is with Trippier, who finds Guimaraes. Isak in the penalty area. And it is with Almiron now, who eventually gets the ball. Trippier sending it in, but not the best of crosses, it has to be said. And it doesn't go out of play, though. Gordon can collect it, but he doesn't control the ball well. And that will be an Arsenal throw. Once again, just that lack of quality. And this is a good time to sort of give you a rundown of the results of games that took place today. And I will share everything, courtesy of our good friends from BBC Sport, as the throw is taken. I believe that's Ben White on the end of that. Nothing much coming of that, and Newcastle can, well, so far not that much by way of an attack, but Trippier does have plenty of space with which to work. Almiron to Longstaff. Trippier. Guimaraes. Trippier. Longstaff again. Back to Trippier. Guimaraes again. Possibly might like to go to the left, but is being harried at the moment by Martinelli. Almiron. And that is sent forward to Trippier by Cher. Isak now back to Lewis Miley. Finds Livramento, who's come forward. Back now with Botman. Passing it to Cher. Back to Botman. And certainly Botman and Cher and Fabian are sharing collective anguish in the defence. But here are the scores for you. Aston Villa playing today. There was no lunchtime kickoff, so everything in alphabetical order. Aston Villa beating Nottingham Forest 4-2, avenging their 2-0 loss at the City Ground early in the season. Goals from Watkins, a brace from Douglas Luiz, and Leon Bailey strike enough to provide Aston Villa their win. It was Niakite and Gibbs White in reply for Forest. Brighton and Everton drawing. Everton going ahead through Branthwaite, but a Lewis Dunk header late in the game, breaking Toffee's hearts. And that will be a goal kick because Saka was not quite able to get on the end of that and prevent that from going over the line. A huge victory for Crystal Palace over Burnley in Oliver Glasner's first game as manager of the Eagles. We're going to find out who scored the goals. Chris Richards, Jordan Ayew, and a penalty from Jean-Philippe Mateta against Burnley, who had Josh Brownhill sent off. And fair to say that sending off did kill the game. And Carrier sending that goal kick long. Finding Jorginho, who ends up passing it back to David Raya. And Raya has been put under pressure on a few occasions in this game, so if Arsenal aren't careful, it could very well prove to be fatal. And Manchester United in one of the game's in one of the day's shock results, losing to a Fulham side inspired by former gunner Alex Iwobi, who some very sad news here. Stan Bowles, the former England and Queen's Park Rangers forward, having passed away at the age of 65, diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease and played more than 560 games in English football and earned 5 caps for England. And that should be a goal kick for Newcastle. Havertz not really able to get on the end of that. 315 appearances for QPR, 97 goals for the Loftus Road club. Also went on to play for Manchester City, Bury, Crewe Alexandra, Carlisle United, Nottingham Forest, Leyton Orient, and Brentford. A 1970s footballing maverick, a special talent, popular for his antics both on and off the field. And I think it's fair to say that in this day and age, the off-field antics might be frowned upon. But very sad news indeed. May he rest in peace and may his family be comforted. And of course, as mentioned, Fulham, inspired by former gunner Alex Iwobi and his deep into stoppage time late winner at Old Trafford. Bassi, of course, putting Fulham ahead. Harry Maguire levelling things up for Manchester United in the 89th minute, only for their hearts to get broken. And it has to be said that Fulham, after all their troubles in the lead up to this match, they deserved this win. And in the later game, of course, preceding this one, Manchester City through Phil Foden, scoring the only goal of the game to break Cherry's hearts. And it has to be said that the Cherries did, in fact, deserve something from the game. But such is football. It is cruel. And we are, of course, now at the 60-minute mark. In fact, we've gone 20 seconds beyond the hour mark. It is still Arsenal 2, Newcastle 0. And a lot of action taking place right now, but nothing much in terms of actual chances. And some more desperate defending from Newcastle as they try to stop Arsenal from making too much more of a headway. I think it's fair to say that Arsenal have gotten a bit too comfortable, but if they get too comfortable, then we all know what can happen. Trippier to Share. Botman. And a pretty poor pass there, which is mopped up by Guimaraes. And eventually Newcastle can start to clear their lines. A huge pass sent forward, finding Isak on the left as opposed to Anthony Gordon, who's now into the centre. Isak into the penalty area, and that was not the best shot at all on goal. You've got to hit the target from that angle after doing that hard work, and he will be kicking himself. And a huge cause of worry there because Ben White was simply left for dead. Great work there from Isak, really, but with Ben White closing in on him and Saliba also blocking his path, you still got to try to hit the target. Pretty poor shot, really. It is with Botman. Fabian Schär, back to Trippier. Intercepted by Martinelli, but Trippier can clean that up. Only as far as Kivior, though, who engages in a little bit more head tennis, as does Declan Rice, but Fabian Schär says enough's enough. This is football, not headball. And it is with Livramento now, who will try to move a little bit forward, up against and some pretty poor play there. And the ruling from Kieran Tierney is that as opposed to a free kick, that will be an Arsenal throw. And it is time, of course, now for Newcastle to make a double substitution. The distinctive number 23 means that it will be Jacob Murphy coming on. And Arsenal are making a substitution of their own. It is Gabriel Martinelli who's coming off. Had an okay game. Great assist for Havertz's goal, but not too much after that. And it is Leandro Trossard who will be coming on for him. So Trossard, of course, expected to ramp things up on Arsenal's left side. So Kieran Trippier and Longstaff will have their work cut out. Double substitution confirmed. Alexander Isak and Almiron coming off. I'm not too sure why you'd want to take Isak off because he has looked really good. But Jacob Murphy and Harvey Barnes coming on in their place. And I do like Harvey Barnes, especially down the left. He is very pacey and can cause a lot of problems, the former Newcastle winger. No appearance for Joe Willock. Might possibly come on at the end of the game if necessary to try and have an Emirates appearance and maybe soak in the warm applause from the Arsenal fans who still remember their Hale End boy. Maybe not too much in the nicest of terms, except he did say that it went out. I'm not too sure why he'd say that because, you're not playing for Arsenal anymore, son. But in any case, Arsenal had to be blamed for not playing to the whistle. However, it's a new game, and Arsenal have gone about setting that right in the best way. Saka in the penalty area, evading a defender, and it goes in. And that is how you respond to critics who say that you just aren't able to do very much. And you've got to say with that, that is really the game sewn up. How sad for Newcastle that it came right after they made their double substitution. But it is what it is. Once again, Newcastle caught cold. A dreadful pass there from Sean Botman, intercepted by Havertz. Declan Rice getting in on the act. And Saka being played onside there by Livramento, I believe it was. And, that was just poor defending, really, from Newcastle. Just poor. How does a speculative shot like that find its way through the legs of not one, but two players? Botman and Cher. This is Sunday League defending, it has to be said. But I'm not complaining. Arsenal are 3-0 up, coasting to victory. And with this victory, they ramp up the pressure on Liverpool and Manchester City. But again, tougher tests will await. And this Newcastle team, quite frankly, look a broken unit. I definitely don't see them scoring another goal with Isak coming off, although Barnes does look a really good threat. And Newcastle with a moment of respite. A free kick to try and clear out this entire defence. And Botman and Cher have normally been excellent defenders this season. Tonight, they've just literally been found wanting. Jacob Murphy allows someone else to take that throw. And you got to give Saka some credit. He has been kept quiet by Livramento for the most part tonight, but for this goal, he finds his way into the penalty area, is able to sidestep one defender, shooting it through the legs of two others. Poor defending there, and instead of a goal kick, it will in fact be an Arsenal throw-in. So coming up to the last quarter of the game, and we will take a look at the goal again, obviously. Havertz with that pass through. Selling Livramento a dummy, a speculative shot which should never have really gone through Botman's or Cher's legs. And you can tell how much that goal meant to Bukayo Saka. And of course, we now are in the last quarter of the game, and you can see that the game has become boring. So as things stand, Arsenal are back up to, they still are in third, a point behind Manchester City with a far superior goal difference. Game, set, and match, and it's not over. Trossard running into the penalty area, and it just has to be Botman there with an important interception, but it will be an Arsenal corner. And this is the type of corner that Declan Rice enjoys taking, and it will be Declan Rice again. Really good to see that Arsenal have more and more players who can take set pieces. In fact, a nice stat at half-time, it was mentioned that Arsenal have scored 18 goals from set pieces this season, not including penalties. Quality. Will we see another set-piece goal as Declan Rice takes this corner? Right-footed, hoping to swing it in. Magalhaes is alert. Well, it was at the near post, and it will be another corner. The defence doing its job. Murphy this time coming to the rescue. Once again, near post, and that is 4, and that has to be game, set, and match. And this time, of all people, it's Jakub Kiwior. Well, Arsenal were hoping for a game by which they could silence their critics after the Porto debacle, and we've just treated ourselves to a nice slice of kiwi lime pie. Another corner, another set piece, another goal. Make that number. And some poor handling there from Karius, who up till that point had a much better game. And, ooh, Butterfingers at its worst. I think it took a deflection off another Newcastle defender. But seriously, that is poor handling. Dreadful handling. And I think Kiwior will certainly want to try and claim that goal, but I wouldn't be surprised if it actually ends up going down as an own goal, and we will find out confirmation of that. Was it, in fact, Lewis Miley who got the unfortunate final touch? Well, so far, the Premier League channel, who are broadcasting this game where I am, have not confirmed the goal scorer. I think until it is confirmed, I will credit that as a Jakub Kiwior goal. Actually, you know what? I am going to have to be a little bit more professional, as much as I'm happy for Kiwior. I will have to, put that down as an own goal because his name was shown on the screen. So, with about 20 minutes to go, all Newcastle can hope for is a consolation. But they have literally been, put to the sword tonight. And to any Arsenal fans watching, I'm so glad you did not go to the cinema on a Saturday night. Some action in the penalty area, though, but the lack of quality in the final third, nobody there to meet that. I don't think even Harvey Barnes can really have much of an effect on the game. Will be interesting to see what he does, though. And quite simply, Newcastle's defence has been absolutely appalling tonight. 2 own goals, split open, on many occasions, and they've just looked average tonight. And even the midfield with Longstaff, Guimaraes, and Miley have not really been at it. So we've made 1 substitution tonight. Havertz is still on the field. Does he get brought off for Gabriel Jesus or Eddie Nketiah? At the moment, though, Newcastle have a free kick, so it's an opportunity to try and get a kind of consolation. And we do see a return to the Emirates Stadium for the former Hale Ender, Joe Willock, along with Dan Burn and Jamal Lascelles. Guimaraes is coming off. Not really been able to be at his influential best. And it is Joe Willock who comes on to what I imagine will be some warm applause from the Arsenal faithful. Dan Burn comes on to take his place, and I'm assuming it will be for probably be to shore things up at the back. No, he is coming on for Livramento. And Jamal Lascelles, the club captain, will be replacing Sven Botman, who scored that first own goal tonight. And Newcastle have now used all 5 of their substitutions. So what do they do from this free kick? Trippier, right-footed, from the right, possibly trying to find someone in the penalty area, taking it away from the goalkeeper. And ironically, that one goes closer to the goalkeeper than desired. And Raya has an easy job of being able to get that. But his kick ends up inadvertently smacking Paul Tierney on his head. And the referee ends up bringing play back, I'm assuming, for a non-related incident. We're going to see some highlights of that, obviously. Well, it doesn't hit his head, it hits his back. And play is, in fact, brought back for Arsenal. It was game, set, and match when Saka scored that third, and that 4th goal has literally rubbed salt into Newcastle's wounds. But again, as Delboy and I were discussing at half-time, doing it in the Premiership against these run-of-the-mill teams is one thing, doing it in Europe is going to be another. And we have had impressive wins over City and Liverpool at home this season in the league, but some poor games against other teams have cost us. And now a triple substitution of Arsenal's own. Looks as though it's Emile Smith-Rowe who will be coming off, and Odegaard hands the captain's armband to Jorge Freo, Georgie Porgy. Probably not as influential as he has been in recent games, but still a more than decent performance from the skipper. I mean, not more than decent, I would say, because Jorginho has pretty much outshone him. And with 15 minutes to go, we are seeing more substitutes brought on. It looks as though Smith-Rowe will be coming on to replace Odegaard. And it will be Reece Nelson for Saka, who scored that 3rd goal. And Eddie Nketiah comes on for I'm assuming Kai Havertz, so no return for Gabriel Jesus just yet. Probably the best time to bring on Nketiah against demoralised opposition. We'll see if he can score. And of course, Reece Nelson, number 24. Certainly had a 24-carat magic moment against Bournemouth last season, but still hasn't really been able to justify the faith being shown in him for the most part. Arsenal free kick sent forward, and I think you can tell that the game's become a little bit boring, to be frank. Smith Rowe in on the action, as is Nelson. And normally Smith Rowe plays on the left, but I think Arteta will have him on the right, with Trossard taking up duties there. Lascelles to Cher, I think, who tries to send it forward. It is now with the former gunner, Joe Willock, who tries to move forward against his LN teammates. It is with Barnes, who sends it into the penalty area, but sort of a cross-come shot, really, and nobody really on the end of that, and that will go out for a goal kick. And so you can say that that is revenge served ice cold, because Newcastle's defence and midfield were caught cold tonight. This water certainly isn't cold. I'd like it to be ice cold to keep me awake a little bit, but I'm enjoying this. Reyes sending that goal kick long. Nketiah hoping to be on the end of that. And Newcastle somehow managed to keep it in play, but Magalhaes sends that forward. And the danger just isn't over. And Smith Rowe trying to get on the end of that, but unable to. And Willock can now run. Of course, Willock and Smith Rowe do go a long way back, but this time around they are on opposite sides. Nice touch from Eddie Howe to give Willock a run out at the Emirates, and Dan pretty much getting burnt there by Nelson. Freo still on the pitch. Georgie. Ben White hoping to find Nketiah, which he does, but Nketiah has the ball muscled off him. And Newcastle are trying their best to move forward. I believe that is Leon. This is Longstaff now. He's pretty much being pushed off the ball, really, by Nketiah. And Trossard also coming in, and Nketiah is able to dispossess Longstaff fairly effortlessly there. And nothing really much of note now. It's a question of damage limitation, really, as Miley passes it to Fabian Cher, who passes it to the club captain, Lascelles. I think it's fair to say that one of those two starting central defenders will be dropped for the next game. And Trossard ends up being dispossessed, but that will be an Arsenal free kick. Paul Tierney's pretty much gotten every decision spot on tonight, and I think it's fair to say that with the fourth goal, it's become a little bit boring. Did start a little bit late, but all's well that's ending well as far as Arsenal are concerned, as we are into the 80th minute, of course, and we will find out how much time will be added for stoppages. I think Newcastle will be hoping, obviously, to get some form of a consolation goal and take something away from that. Nketiah. Smith Rowe now in the penalty area, but blocked by the Newcastle defence. You want to see Smith Rowe get on the score sheet. And Kivior, of course, who caused that fourth goal. Magalhaes. Saliba. Back to Raya, who is halfway in his own half from his goal. Newcastle still struggling to clear that. And ever since Joe Willock's come on, he's pretty much been in the thick of the action on his return to the Emirates. Last season, of course, he was a part of the Newcastle team that stifled Arsenal in a 0-0 draw. This time around, the circumstances are different. His new team have just gotten a pasting, and he's coming on to try and salvage a little something for his side. And he's now moved out to the left. He does have the knack of being able to play in more than a few positions. Actually, that was Jacob Murphy there, not Willock. Share. Longstaff. Barnes, maybe. Up against Nelson. And once again, another potential Newcastle move stifled by the Arsenal defence. The Smith Rowe further getting into the action. He clearly wants some starts. He clearly needs and deserves minutes. But still not easy for him with his injury record trying to get himself into the game. And an inadvertent back pass to Karius there from Declan Rice. And Newcastle are perhaps lucky that wasn't intercepted. And Nketiah there trying to rob Trippier, but conceding a throw. Yeah, that has become quite boring, to be honest, and I will possibly stay on for a little bit of reflection. If Del Boy does decide to come back, he will, in fact, inform me. And I know that Del is actually watching it right now, enjoying every bit of it. And this is actually the type of performance that we have needed for a long time. But the thing is, though, we just know that Liverpool and City are going to keep winning and finding ways to win. So all we can do is control what we can control, and we will have to make sure we pass the bigger tests. City at the Etihad, of course, will be key, and if we do not win that, then we can kiss our title hopes goodbye. And let's also not forget the small matter of Unai Emery and Aston Villa returning to the Emirates on the 13th of April. Trossard, Jorginho, sending it forward to Reiss Nelson. Back to Jorginho. Back to Nelson. Out to Ben White on the right, but White has his pocket picked. But Nelson picks it back for him, only to lose it himself. Still being harried, though, the Newcastle defence by Smith Rowe and Nelson. Eventually they are able to clear it. I believe that is Harvey Barnes. Finding Anthony Gordon in the penalty area, but Magalhaes doing some pretty good work and forcing him to backtrack a little bit. But the danger still isn't over as far as Arsenal are concerned. And in fact, Newcastle do find a consolation. And would you believe it, it's the former gunner Joe Willock who ends up giving the travelling Newcastle fans something about which they can smile. Well, in different circumstances, it would certainly be a huge talking point, but for the moment, I think this will obviously be just more of a consolation, and Willock has, in fact, refused to celebrate. Beautiful glancing header, no chance for David Raya, and this time around, he was much closer to his goal, in off the post, and you have to say that is pretty much the way you wanted to end. Arsenal win, and Willock on his return to the Emirates scoring. Arsenal 4, Newcastle 1. 5 minutes to go, plus stoppages. Surely there can't be talk of a fight back, though. That has to be a consolation. Karius. Out to Dan Burn. And it is, of course, Willock who tries to move forward, finding Harvey Barnes. And Byrne pretty much sending that out of play. Not really the best play from the extremely tall Newcastle left back. And Jorginho's on the floor. I do believe Arsenal have one more substitution, so it could very well be cramp that's affecting the Brazilian-Italian veteran. Should be okay, though, and he will, in fact, be able to continue. And credit to the Newcastle fans for staying behind until the bitter end. At least they were able to see a goal for their pains. So no clean sheet for David Raya, but apart from that, a very satisfying night. And Joe Willock capping his return to the Newcastle side with a fine, fine goal. At his old stomping ground, no less. Raya sending that forward. Headed into no man's land, really, by Saliba, and Dan Byrne can mop that up and possibly try and move forward. Willock to Lascelles. Sent forward, but well intercepted by Kivior, who's had a pretty decent game tonight. Magalhaes to Saliba. And that's also sent forward. There's no way Nketiah's going to get that, and Karius ends up sending that back into open play rather than out of play for a change. And Arsenal win a throw. And Jorginho, in fact, has played his last part in the night. He will, of course, be brought off. He hands over the armband to Gabriel Magalhaes. Interesting to see who comes on for him. It is the Egyptian veteran, Mohamed El Neni. Older than Tutankhamun, one would say. Part of the furniture. With 2 minutes to go, the Egyptian veteran gets a run out. A like-for-like substitution, really, and no real need to try anything silly. But a fine performance from Jorginho tonight. Didn't put a foot wrong, made some fine passes, and justified his manager's decision to start him ahead of Leandro Trossard. And clash over there between Nketiah and Cher, I think. All smiles as Georgie takes his place between Martinelli and Ramsdale, who is surprisingly all smiles, given that he might not be at Arsenal for much longer. Of course, he will definitely play for Arsenal when Brentford come calling, because as we forget, Raya is on loan with us. Direct run from Harvey Barnes, delivery into the box from Dan Byrne, and Willock with that fine header. What might have been had we not let him go? But it is what it is as we come into the last 15 seconds of normal time, and there will definitely be some stoppages. I'm estimating something like about 5 minutes, maybe. Enough time for either side to get another goal that will either make it a little bit more palatable for Newcastle fans or really wrap everything up with a ribbon for Arsenal fans. At the moment, it's the former Tottenham right back, Trippier, who sends it forward to Jacob Murphy. Murphy against Kivior, and that's pretty poor, really, from the number 23. And there are, in fact, 5 minutes of time added on. And headed back in there by Lascelles, but that should be easily cleared. And once again, some rather loopy sort of play. It's Willock up against El Neni. Trossard. And nothing really much coming out of that. And Karius ends up perverting the danger, sending it far forward, headed away by Magalhaes. And El Neni gets a touch of the ball, passing it to Kivior, getting it back from Magalhaes and finding Smith Rowe. Saliba back to Magalhaes, who sends it forward, left-footed. And too far forward for everyone's liking. Trossard was never going to get on the end of that. Straight to Karius, who passes it to Cher, and Byrne loses control of that, and we could see another Arsenal attack here. Reece Nelson in the penalty area. Smith Rowe denied a goal off the line, and that would really have capped it. We had one Hale-Ender scoring, or actually two rather, if you we have to include Bukayo Saka. This really should have been Smith Rowe there, but Byrne making up for his earlier error by being at the right place at the right time. It will, however, be another Arsenal corner, right-footed by Declan Rice, swinging in. Emile Smith Rowe, actually taken short really to Smith Rowe, who passes it back to Declan Rice. Nelson. No Bournemouth winner this time. Pretty much aiming for the right-hand side of Karius' post, and Karius doing well to get down and save. 2 minutes to go until the game ends. Still Arsenal 4, Newcastle United 1. And really nothing much to do about it, really. Nketiah being sent forward by Nelson, but Byrne once again rather, violently sending Nketiah tumbling, but Tierney not blowing for a foul. Gordon sent forward, but never going to get on the end of that. Saliba and Ray are mopping up. Magalhaes to Kivior. To Smith Rowe, who certainly had a star turn tonight. You can see every time he plays how much he puts into it, and he puts people like Kai Havertz to shame, really, into the penalty area with Trossard, but that is easily defended. Back with Rice, though, who finds El Neni. Nelson. Ben White. Chipped in left-footed, and that is headed behind for a goal kick. Apparently it came off Smith Rowe's head at the very end. And it would be a tragedy for me if Smith Rowe were to leave Arsenal, but if he were to end up joining Emery's revolution at Aston Villa, he will certainly thrive under the former Arsenal manager. Byrne. Back to Cher. And it really should be all over bar the shouting, and I think Newcastle's players even know that. But maybe time for one last attack, we'll see. Trippier ends up being intercepted, and it shouldn't be long, and in fact, that is the full-time whistle. Well, you can see that lessons have been learnt. In games gone by, against teams like this, we would normally concede another goal and put ourselves in trouble. But this time around, we were able to score 2 goals in fairly quick succession. Saka, of course, getting the 3rd goal. And I will make a change because this time around, because the touch from Miley was deemed not to be really that pivotal, I am going to give credit to Jakub Kiwior for that goal. So let it not be said that I cannot correct my mistakes. Confirmation of the score, 4 goals scored by Arsenal. Sven Botman with an own goal after a fine save by Karius in the first half. Havertz with a tap-in after a brilliant assist from Gabriel Martinelli. Saka taking advantage of some pretty poor Newcastle defending to fire in the 3rd through a couple of defenders' legs and from another corner. It has to be said that it was a header from Kiwior which caused some panic and some poor handling really from the former Liverpool goalkeeper Karius. Now you understand why he was sent away from Liverpool after costing them that Champions League final. Joe Willock, of course, coming back to his former stomping ground and glancing a header past Pepe Reina to provide some consolation. But that really was as good as it was going to get. And good win for Arsenal tonight. Fair play. It wasn't 4-0. It was 4-1. Joe Willock scored that goal. And Emile Smith-Rowe nearly capping a substitute appearance with a goal, only for Dan Burn to clear off the line. And so as things stand, I will in fact show you the Premier League table at the end of it all. It is, of course, subject to updates on BBC Sport. But now that it's of course at full time, technically, of course, this is they say how the table stands, but it is fair to say that as it stands with the game over, this is how it looks. Liverpool still top on 60 points. United second, City second on 59. Arsenal on 58. And you have to say that it will be those 3 teams who will be fighting for the title. But with 12 games to go, do not rule out Aston Villa unless they have another few defeats, which will rule them out of contention for the title. But they will still have had an absolutely magnificent season. Do not bet against them securing Champions League football. Spurs and Manchester United obviously losing ground in recent times. Spurs, of course, not playing today in lieu of Chelsea's participation in tomorrow's League Cup final. United having the chance to gain extra ground, but losing to Fulham today. And, of course, their goal difference will obviously be a bit of a handicap. Brighton somehow nicking a draw against relegation-threatened Everton. Newcastle, of course, as you saw, being shellacked by Arsenal today. And that is, of course, how the top 8 look. And that is, of course, how competition for Europe, some places, looks at the very moment. There is talk about a possible 5th English Champions League spot, depending on whether or not Manchester City will reach a second final. I mean, Arsenal will probably have to go a little bit further in the competition to try and make that dream a reality. But I think it's fair to say that that might not necessarily happen. And, of course, at the bottom end of the table, Everton, having played today, have crept out of the relegation zone. I mean, they were actually out of it only on goal difference, but 1 point does put a bit of distance between them, but they would have loved 3. Forest, of course, have sunk down to 16th and are in trouble themselves and could be subject to a points deduction themselves. Brentford will be playing tomorrow, I believe, and on the day of the cup final. Bournemouth also finding themselves in a bit of a spot of bother behind Crystal Palace on goal difference, albeit with a game in hand because their game against Luton will have to be replayed. Fulham staying put in 12th, Wolves in 11th, Chelsea in 10th, West Ham in 9th, and Burnley and Sheffield United look absolutely doomed. No hope for them. Luton still have some fight in them. And I wonder if they'll be singing a fight song over at Kenilworth Road. Not sure, too sure people got the pun, but as Chelsea fan has said, the title race is getting really, really good. So I am, of course, hoping to stay on for maybe a little bit longer, and later on I will be hoping to jump on Northside's call-in channel. You know, Del Boy used to do those wonderful call-in shows, but I think obviously, you know, with call-in shows saturating everything on YouTube, doesn't really make any sense to do another one, and don't know if we'd get too much more in terms of the expected crowd, maybe, but you know, he does a lot of terrific stuff, a lot of terrific videos, and of course, I've enjoyed working with him over the years. He's pretty much been my introduction to this whole YouTube lark, really, and that's why he will always and forever have a special place in my heart. And so when I invited him to come on, didn't think twice, and I'm really glad that he was able to come on and share a few insights with me. I know he'll be buzzing after this, and depending on his commitments, whatever he might possibly be doing after the match, he could possibly try and come back. So maybe I'll wait. If we've got any more people in the comments who'd like to say anything, by all means do so. AFC Always, what did you think of the game? Anyone else? Thanks a lot to Daz Reynolds and LFC for Life who've come in. Chelsea fan always, consistent presence here. Focus on the cup final tomorrow, son. Don't worry about us. We are streets ahead of you, and you know it. I had to do that. And we've just gone over 2 hours, 2 hours and 2 minutes on the dot, I will say. And all I can say is thank you to everyone who's been a part of this. And so Del Boy and I were talking about lessons that had to be learnt by Arsenal. And I think it's fair to say that those lessons have been, you know, learnt today. Because as I've said, this is normally the sort of game that we would lose. I mean, not lose, but where we'd certainly end up conceding a goal to bring it back to 2-1 and look really uncomfortable. But this time around, we've learnt our lesson. It has to be said, though, that this Newcastle team just looked utterly toothless tonight. The defence was a shambles. The midfield weren't really that much better. And the much vaunted front three didn't really do too much tonight. So in the end, it was a really good win. 4 goals tonight. Very happy. But, you know, goal difference, of course, will come into play as the season goes on. And with a goal, with 3 more added to the goal difference, yep, our goal difference in fact stands at 39 compared to Liverpool's 38 and City's 33. Aston Villa doing well with a 21 goal difference, but not as well as the top 3. But goal difference can come into play, and so we will have to hope for City and Newcastle and Liverpool to slip up at any time, but also assume that they will continue to win, and all we can do is control what we can control. And if we end up just failing to make it, I think those poor results at midway through the season have pretty much cost us. So there's no talk about us winning the league just yet, because we will have tougher games to come. And in fact, I will take this opportunity to take a look at Arsenal's upcoming run. So as mentioned, we've just beaten Newcastle 4-1. On the 4th of March, we've got a routine trip to Sheffield United. Creamed them 5-0 this season. I definitely do not see them getting anything from that game. An interesting game, of course, on the 9th of March between us and Brentford. Of course, as mentioned, David Raya will be ineligible to play, so Aaron Ramsdale comes back in goal. And, of course, with Ivan Toney back in, it will be very interesting to see how well they do. Brentford, of course, had an excellent game at the Etihad against Manchester City, only to be denied anything from that by an unfortunate slip, which led to Erling Haaland's winner. On the 12th of March, we've got it all to do against Porto at the Emirates. We are, of course, facing a 1-goal deficit following that shambles of a performance, it has to be said. Not necessarily sure that we can play the way we played tonight against Porto, but then, you know, there's no way that they can continue to park the bus for as long as they have and not expect to be unlocked every now and then by us. So we should be able to win. I can be confident of maybe a 3-1 win, maybe. I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. A tricky game, of course, up against... a tricky game up against Chelsea, Hanno's lot, on the 16th of March. And then, of course, that titanic trip to the Etihad to play City on Sunday the 31st, following an international break, I would think. Up against Luton at home, Brighton at the Amex, and a really tasty match against Unai Emery as he, Emi Martinez, and Callum Chambers return to the Emirates on the 13th of April. And then, of course, a little trip to Molineux to play against Gary O'Neill's Wolves on the 20th of April. And, of course, this is the run which will see us get closer to the end of the season when the title could be expected to be decided. So Chelsea, of course, are resurgent under Pochettino, but still quite inconsistent. City, of course, are always a fine second-half team. Of course, even if we were to lose at the Etihad, not all would be lost as long as we were to win our remaining games. But Villa are not going to be pushovers by any means. Neither, for that matter, will be Wolves or even Brighton, for that matter. And do not ever count out Luton Town. AFC always back in, annoyed that we conceded a goal, although I suppose the fact that it came at the hands of our former gunner will give you a little bit of satisfaction. What might have been had we kept him, but at least he's proving that he still has some quality, and maybe if he avoids getting injured, he'll continue to play more. Welcome back, and big up to Chelsea fan. And AFC always saying we've got to win every game before we play Manchester City and beat them at the Etihad if we want to win this Premier League title. Absolutely spot on. It's one thing to be able to take 4 points off Liverpool and to have beaten City at the Emirates, but if we don't win at the Etihad, then maybe that's our chances, diminished, if not completely gone altogether. And I am still on air. We are taking a look at highlights from the game. Saka's goal, of course, absolutely dreadful defending. And I think the studio guests, Alan Shearer and company, will pretty much agree with that. And all competitions, that is, of course, Bukayo Saka's 16th goal. He scored 15 last season and 12 the season before. So he's actually going from strength to strength as a goal scorer in some ways, but people are still going to criticize him for not really being able to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And it will be interesting to see what a lot of people will have to say about him. I think Martinelli tries his best all the way on the left wing, but there is a big part of me that believes that he should actually be more of a centre forward, and he's being wasted there. And that is, of course, the Kivior goal. Karius will not want to look back on that. Poor defending, really. What Trippier was doing, allowing Kivior to run that far. Supposed he was watching his shoes instead of the man, I will never know. And, as a former goalkeeper myself, I can tell you, when you put your hands out like this, you're asking for trouble. And I think once Dubravka is fit, he goes straight back in goal. Dubravka may not be quite as good as Nick Pope, but he has had a few fine games for Newcastle this season. He will, of course, be expected to start for Slovakia in this upcoming Euros, and maybe then he might end up getting a transfer away from Newcastle. Chelsea fan, as always, thank you very much indeed, and as always, good luck to you for the Cup final tomorrow. And that's pretty much the way it goes. They haven't really showed us Willock's goal yet, and they will show it soon. And Willock is, of course, one of those players who probably never got as many opportunities as he should have had under Arteta. But when Steve Bruce brought him in, he flourished magnificently, and Eddie Howe's seen enough to decide that he wants him to stay at St. James's Park. Bit of a shame that due to injury, he couldn't really play too much of a role in Newcastle's Champions League campaign. Well, it is, of course, now 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I will be honest, I am actually waiting for our half-time guest to come back, and I have to say that it was really refreshing to see him, come on and be more of a guest as opposed to a host. But they have showed the Willock goal. Great work there by Barnes and Byrne in tandem. Byrne overlapping magnificently, getting that cross in, and Joe Willock meeting that just beautifully. So nothing much else. I mean, the TV is on mute, so I can't really hear what's being said. And we've got Eddie Howe offering some reaction, so I am going to mute the screen for the moment. Okay, so Eddie Howe, they're basically saying, with their FA Cup tie, I believe it's a replay against Blackburn coming up. They are, of course, going to have to dust themselves off and focus on that game. And maybe we'll see Dubravka back in goal because, quite frankly, Karius was looking good in some parts, but pretty much blotted his copybook with that fourth goal. One of many technical mistakes that were made today, really, by Newcastle, and Arsenal just punished them quite ruthlessly. And what was certainly frustrating, do please excuse me, everyone. What was certainly frustrating was how Arsenal's third and fourth rather, came not too long after Howe had made a few substitutions to try to change things around. And sadly, his plans were thrown completely off kilter. And some tough games coming up for Newcastle. Home against Wolves, away at Chelsea, away at Crystal Palace, home against West Ham, and home against Everton. And their form in these last 6 games has been a little bit choppy. 2 wins, 2 draws, and now 2 losses. An excellent performance against Aston Villa at Villa Park, being followed by a rather bizarre performance against Luton, where they scored 4 and conceded 4. Good win at the City Ground against Nottingham Forest, but again, defeat tonight hasn't really been the best for them. And I think that home defeat to Manchester City was also in many ways a bit of a heartbreaker. And injuries have started to take their toll. And I think Howe's finding himself in a bit of a difficult position. And there will be several players who will be moved on. Newcastle, of course, are in 8th position, 2 points behind Brighton in the race for the Conference League spot. And they are 15 points behind Aston Villa. Nowhere near in the race for Champions League football this time around. And I think you have to say that the way things are going, I don't think they'll get it again this season. And they did obviously have a really promising Champions League campaign where they did impress in that really tough group, only to end up suffering from some ill fortune and exiting the tournament without even making the Europa League. And confirmation of their run, lost at home to City, beat Aston Villa at Villa Park, drew at home to Luton, beat Forest away, so 2 away wins, a home draw against Bournemouth 2-2, and then of course tonight's result, which was nothing but an absolute shellacking. Technical mistakes made, especially in the defence, and the injuries are sort of taking their toll more than anything else. So not a good night for the Magpies, a great night for the Gunners. And the only question is, of course, where do we go from here? All we can do is just continue to perform the way we're performing and hope that the other teams will slip up. That's how we control what we can control. Around about this time last season, we would normally, lose momentum by losing a few poor games and having some poor performances. And certainly the memories of last season's collapse are only too raw for myself and several others like me. And at least if we can continue to do as well as we can this season, it could stand us in good stead for the upcoming seasons ahead, when we will hope to challenge again for the title. But after this season, you can also bet that Aston Villa will look to build on the fine season they've had. There's been talk about Emery trying to get several players to join, including the Dutch international right back Denzel Dumfries, who would lend some brilliant competition to Matthew Cash for the right back slot. Absolute quality player who hasn't been playing too often at Inter Milan of late. And he would certainly be a fine addition to the squad if, as expected and or hoped, they do end up qualifying for the Champions League. But, of course, Liverpool are top, City are second. And we've just got to assume that they will continue to win all their games with or without some of their star players. And I remember saying on Orist's stream that instead of making excuses about the injuries and the lack of proper personnel, Liverpool are playing guys like Connor Bradley and company and finding ways to win. And we've got to do the same thing. We have to just make do of the absence of the likes of Yurian Timber, Alexander Zinchenko, Takahiro Tomiyasu, and Thomas Partey, who wasn't even in the squad today. Hopefully, he will be back in the squad as the run-in goes on. But I sort of get the feeling that his Arsenal career could very well end up being over, and more's the shame. Certainly, a quality midfielder who's lent a lot to us, but injuries have not been his best friend. It has to be said. And we might possibly get some reaction from Mikel Arteta, and I will, in fact, wait for that. And of course, he'll be quite satisfied, but we'll also be talking about some of the upcoming games and the games that have just gone by prior to tonight. think it's fair to say that the Champions League might have come a season too early for this team. And hopefully we will continue to make sure that we do ourselves and our talent a great deal of justice. Sort of a late decision, really, to do this stream, but I'm glad I was able to do it. And we've got Nippon on the stream. Nippon, listen, if you want to, sadly, I'm off social media, but so I don't know how I can send you the link. But all I can say is good luck to you for the cup final tomorrow. Sabtik, Merahalbi, and I hope for the same for you. And how confident are you of landing a trophy under Mauricio Pochettino? And of course, it will be good to have a chat with you, because I'll tell you what, we will obviously, be playing you lot in the Premiership very soon. But before I get to you, we do have Mikel Arteta, and we will hear from him. Okay, so Mikel Arteta praising the team's positivity and aggression, and also complimenting how the team came out for the second half with the same intensity and didn't flag and show any signs of mental flatulence or brain farts, as Del Boy rather eloquently said at halftime, and praising Jorginho for his performance and not really having a favourite goal, and basically saying that, again, it's a case of regrouping and playing the upcoming Monday against Sheffield United. Now, of course, back to Mr. Sharma. I am good, as I've said, and I would have hoped to try to send you the link so that you could come on and have a chat with me as a sort of a preview to tomorrow's cup final. But I'd like to know how confident you are and how hopeful you are of possibly getting a win. And bear in mind, you've actually got to come to the Emirates and play against us. So the form you're showing now is shaping up to be quite an interesting contest. And here I was thinking that it would be a foregone conclusion, but you lot are starting to look good again. I mean, you're blowing hot and you're cold, but somehow I think you're finding a way to make it work. But for now, Mr. Sharma, NS Sports TV, good luck for tomorrow. I don't know if you'll necessarily be going to watch the game. You might be catching it on the telly, but I did predict a Liverpool win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea end up coming out on top. Certainly something to look forward to. And I think it's fair to say that we've gone on for a little bit too long, and I think it's fair to say that Del Boy is a little bit busy, really. So I'm actually going to tell him that I'll be ending the stream, and yeah, just sending him a WhatsApp text right now. Yeah, it is close to 4 a.m. over here in my neck of the woods. 10:30 over in the UK. And bit of a late Saturday night for some people, although some people have stayed up for a little bit longer. And of course, invariably, when we have the big European nights, we stay up until this time. So that is, of course, the end of the coverage on the telly before they have the whole highlights show. And this will, of course, be the end of the stream, coming on to 2 hours and 28 minutes. So once again, a huge thank you to Del Boy Gunner TV for coming on at halftime. Wonderful to catch up with him. Wonderful friend of mine. I'm really glad that he was able to come on and give his thoughts. And big up as well to everyone in the chat. Chelsea fan, AFC Always, Daz Reynolds, LFC for life, and of course, Nipun Sharma at the very end. And I say good luck to you for the Cup final tomorrow. And I believe there will be a watch-along for that on this channel. So do stay tuned for that. But until then, thanks a lot to all of you for joining in. Wonderful to have you on as always. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy this upcoming Sunday. Sleep well tonight. Stay safe and be happy. And don't do anything that Hanno, Del Boy, or the chat or I wouldn't do. But as always, it is good night. God bless to you, and farewell to thee.